My ex and his mistress crashed my open house, mocking my success. But they didn't realize I had already built a life they couldn't destroy. As I reposition the expertly arranged throw pillows on the couch, the aroma of freshly made cookies fills the air. In our company, it's the small details that make a big difference. The open house is prepared to greet prospective buyers, so I take a moment to appreciate my job. I freeze as I turn to see how the refreshments are doing. Ethan and Chloe, my ex-husband and his new wife, whom he left me for, enter the house with the audacity of brass. I put on my most polished smile, but I'm furious on the inside. As he walks up to me, Ethan grins and says, well, if it isn't Zara. Still trying to sell houses? I see. Condescension permeates Chloe's voice when she adds her voice. I'm surprised you're still in this business, Zara. Ethan told me you were never really cut out for it. Refusing to give them the gratification of witnessing my tremors, I bite my tongue. Ethan. Chloe. What a surprise. I didn't expect to see you here. Are you looking for a new place? Ethan wraps Chloe's waist with his arm. Thought we'd see what you have to offer. I recognize the irony. I gave my all to our marriage years ago while helping Ethan establish his legal practice. But I was never good enough at anything. He became aloof, judgmental, and constantly looking for flaws. I obtained my real estate license because I was determined to contribute and forge my own path. At every opportunity, Ethan disparaged my efforts and claimed I was squandering my time. I should have recognized the warning flags back then, but I was too infatuated and blind. I confronted him after learning of his affair with his much younger assistant Chloe. They refer to it as gaslighting since he denied it and made me feel like I was going insane. The truth was right in front of me, even if I didn't want to believe it. I was caught off guard by the divorce. What a joke, Ethan filed, claiming irreconcilable differences. Before the ink on the paperwork dried, he moved in with Chloe. He did everything he could to leave me with nothing, even though I battled valiantly for a just settlement. I reached my lowest point, but I didn't want to stay there. Determining to succeed on my own terms, I put my all into my work, and I succeeded. I launched my own agency after becoming a top-selling agent. I made it my goal to assist women who are struggling, like myself, in finding their ideal houses and starting over. And now I find myself confronting my past. Ethan and Chloe, who are trying to reduce their household size. The thought of their financial difficulties makes me feel a little satisfied. I put on my best act and lead them around the house, pointing out its features. I ignore the sarcastic remarks that Ethan mutters. With her gaze darting anxiously between us, Chloe appears preoccupied. I can't help but make a small jab as we finish the trip. I'm sure I can find you something that fits your budget. My business has been thriving, and I have a lot of high-profile clients. I'm sure I can help you out. Ethan lashes out as his face flushes. You got lucky, Zara. You're just riding on my coattails. I give a charming smile. Luck has nothing to do with it, Ethan. I worked hard for what I have, and I did it all without you. I can see the flaws in their flawless facade as Chloe shifts uneasily. They have no idea what lies ahead. This is only the beginning. As I drive home from the open house, the memories come flooding back. Chloe's scathing comments, Ethan's arrogant expression. They remind me of everything I've attempted to move past, and they're like a knife twisting in my stomach. I remember our marriage, how I helped Ethan through law school, how I had faith in him when others had lost faith. As he started his business from the beginning, I supported him at every turn. But he drifted farther away the more successful he got. I was never good enough at anything. I would act as though I didn't notice when he would arrive home late and smell like perfume and drink. He would simply grunt and withdraw to his study even though I would prepare his favorite dishes and attempt to converse with him. I still recall the day I made the decision to obtain my real estate license. I was sick of depending on Ethan for everything and feeling like a burden. I desired to have something of my own and to contribute. Ethan laughed in my face when I told him about my plans. You? A real estate agent? Don't be ridiculous, Zara. You don't have what it takes. Even though what he said hurt, I didn't let it stop me. I put a lot of effort into my studies, aced my tests, and jumped right into my new job. However, Ethan never helped me. He would minimize my endeavors, claiming that I was squandering my time. The day I learned about Chloe then arrived. I discovered a flirtatious text message between Ethan and his assistant on his phone. My heart broke into a million fragments. That night, my voice trembling with rage and betrayal, I faced him. How could you do this to me, Ethan? To us? He lied while staring me in the eye. I don't know what you're talking about, Zara. You're being paranoid. There's nothing going on between me and Chloe. I fervently hoped that he was telling the truth. But I knew in my heart. It all made sense. The late hours at work, the covert phone conversations, the way he glanced at her when he believed I wasn't looking. After I engaged a private investigator, pictures of Ethan and Chloe caught in the act were revealed. I challenged him once more, this time with evidence. I guess you weren't enough for me, Zara. I need someone who understands me, who supports my dreams, he remarked with a shrug. It was an awful divorce. Ethan resisted me at every turn, attempting to deprive me of everything. He even dared to say that I was the one who had cheated on him. I eventually left with a just settlement, but I was devastated. The greatest years of my life had been spent with Ethan, and he had tossed it all away as if it didn't matter. I reached my lowest point, but I didn't want to stay there. I put all of my effort into my work because I wanted to disprove Ethan. I would prove to him that I was capable of succeeding without his help. And I did. I launched my own agency after becoming a top-selling agent. Helping women like myself who had been knocked down but refused to stay there was my goal. However, everything comes flooding back when I meet Ethan and Chloe today. The hurt, the betrayal, the rage. I want to lash out, scream, and give them even a small portion of the pain they inflicted on me. I won't though. I am superior to that. I'm more powerful than that. I have created a life for myself that Ethan will never be able to take away. I inhale deeply and exhale slowly as I pull into my driveway. I refuse to be affected by them. I refuse to let them prevail. I'm a survivor named Zara. And I will be damned if I let Chloe and Ethan drag me down once more. On a Tuesday, the divorce papers arrived. The receptionist buzzed me while I was reviewing some postings at my desk. Zara, there's a courier here for you. He says it's urgent. With trembling hands, I ripped the packet open and signed for it. I was immediately struck by the words, petition for divorce. Next to the checkbox for irreconcilable differences, Ethan's name stood out accusingly. It seemed as though someone had punched me in the stomach. Even though I knew things were awful, I never imagined he would get this bad. I never imagined that he would simply give up on us. He wasn't picking up when I called him. My voice became increasingly frantic as I left message after message. Ethan, please, can we just talk about this? Can we try to work it out? However, he had vanished. His car was gone as I passed our house, and there was a moving van parked in front of it. As I sat there with the engine running and tears running down my cheeks, the neighbors looked at me pityingly. He moved in with Chloe that same day, as I later learned. He lacked the civility to wait for the divorce to be finalized. He was eager to begin his new life with her. It was an awful divorce. Ethan tried to leave me with nothing, but he fought me to the death. He engaged the most skilled and merciless attorneys, and they thoroughly destroyed me in court. I recall sitting across from him in that impersonal courtroom on the day of the last hearing. He refused to even glance in my direction, instead focusing on Chloe, who was sitting smugly in the front row. It ended when the judge struck his gavel. Even though I received a settlement, it felt like a pointless win. Everything that had ever been important to me was gone. After that, I reached my lowest point. In the morning, I was barely able to get out of bed, much less go to work. To dull the ache, I started drinking. I pushed my family and friends away. I didn't want their platitudes or sympathy. However, I woke up one day and understood that I couldn't continue in this manner. I couldn't allow Ethan to prevail. I couldn't allow him to ruin me. I put my all into my work because I was determined to be successful. I accepted every client and every listing. Fueled by an unquenchable fire in my gut, I worked harder than I had ever done. Painfully and slowly, I began to reconstruct my life. I discovered a new apartment, a little, comfortable space that was exclusively mine. I met new pals who were not sympathetic toward me and who were unaware of my background. I concentrated on finding my clients the homes of their dreams. I focused on helping women going through divorces, women who, like me, were beginning over. I became their rock and advocate. I began to recover as the months stretched into years. The pain grew tolerable, but it never quite disappeared. I discovered how to cope with it and turn it into motivation for my goals. I launched my own agency after becoming a top-selling agent. I surrounded myself with positive, self-believing people. I discovered a fresh feeling of direction and motivation for getting out of bed in the morning. However, I will always remember what Ethan did to me. He threw me aside like I was nothing, and I will never forget it. And I promised to hold him accountable one day. I would one day show him what he lost by choosing Chloe over me. I would get my revenge one day. I put my attention on my work, my clients, and creating the life I deserve for the time being. Zara here, and I'm not going to be broken. As the years went by, I threw myself wholeheartedly into my profession. I accepted every challenge and every listing. I was determined to prove myself, so I put in more hours than everyone else, and it was successful. I became the top-selling agent in my office as my sales figures soared. My clients were so pleased with me that they told their friends and relatives about me. My area of expertise was helping women who were starting over or going through difficult circumstances. I turn into their confidant and mentor. I assist them in locating homes, places where they can recover and start over. At her closing, one of my clients, Sarah, a single mother, gives me a big hug. With tears in her eyes, "I couldn't have accomplished this without you, Zara," she says. "You gave me the strength to start over, to believe in myself again." Her advice sticks with me and strengthens my resolve. I understand what it's like to feel lost and like you've reached your lowest point. However, I am also aware that it is possible to rise above the past and create a new life from its ashes. I launch my own agency and surround myself with a group of strong, kind ladies. We establish ourselves as the agency of choice for women in transition, those who require a little more understanding and support. I establish myself as a respected member of the community, and my business prospers. I get asked to offer my experience and knowledge at conferences. For young women who are interested in real estate, I even launched a mentorship program. But Ethan is always in the forefront of my mind. I will always remember how he deceived me and abandoned me, leaving me broken and alone. I monitor him and his legal practice. I hear tales of unethical behavior and clients that feel taken advantage of and deceived. I waited for the ideal opportunity to present itself. I'm prepared to wait as long as it takes since I understand that retaliation is a dish that tastes the finest cold. Then, one day, an opportunity presents itself. I'm holding an open house for a luxurious home, a magnificent mansion with expansive city views. I hear a recognizable voice behind me while I'm displaying the gourmet kitchen. "Zara, I thought that was you." When I turn around, I see Ethan and Chloe, who appear older and more scruffy than I recall. Chloe's face is unpleasant and pinched, and Ethan's hair is becoming gray at the temples. "Ethan, Chloe, what a surprise," I say calmly, with a kind smile. "I didn't expect to see you here." Chloe says, "We're looking for a new place," as she glances around the room. "Something a little more affordable." My eyebrows go up. "Oh, we're having some financial trouble, are we?" Ethan frowns, his face flushed. "That's none of your business, Zara. We're just exploring our options." I grin slowly, like a predator. "Of course. Well, as you can see, business is booming for me. I've got high-profile clients from all over the city, and my agency is thriving. I'm sure I could find you something suitable." "We don't need your help, Zara. We're doing just fine on our own," Ethan says, glaring at me while Chloe appears uneasy. I turn back to the kitchen and shrug. "Suit yourself. But if you change your mind, you know where to find me." I can't help but feel a rush of satisfaction as they leave. Despite the fact that Ethan broke me once, I've become stronger and better than before. Now that I've witnessed his struggles and the weaknesses in his flawless exterior, I know it's almost time for me to exact my retribution. Even though I lost the battle years ago, I'm still committed to winning the war. And with my pride and head held high, I'll do it how I want. Despite having ruined my past, Ethan and Chloe have no influence over my future. I'm Zara, and I can't be stopped. My assistant buzzes me when I'm sitting in my office a few days after the open house. "Zara, there's Chloe here to see you." She says it's urgent. A glimmer of astonishment passes, but I maintain my composure. "Send her in." Chloe enters, appearing worn out and anxious. She avoids my eyes as she fidgets with her purse. "Zara, I need your help." I recline in my chair and examine her. "Oh? And why would I help you, Chloe? You and Ethan made it pretty clear you wanted nothing to do with me." She inhales deeply before finally seeing me in the eye. "Ethan and we're having some financial difficulties. His law firm is struggling, and we're barely making ends meet. We need to sell our house, but we don't know where to start." At what she said, I can't help but feel a little satisfied. The powerful lawyer, Ethan, came to me and begged for my assistance. How the powerful have fallen, oh. However, I maintain a neutral look and a professional voice. "I see. And you think I'm the right person to help you?" With beseeching eyes, Chloe nods. "You're the best in the business, Zara, everyone knows that. And I know we haven't always seen eye to eye, but I'm hoping we can put that behind us, for the sake of our shared history." Sensing an opening, I resist the want to laugh in her face and tell her precisely where she can stick her shared history. "Very well," I responded as I straightened my skirt and got to my feet. "I'll take a look at your property and see what I can do, but I make no promises." With a look of relief on her face, Chloe nods enthusiastically. "Thank you, Zara. You have no idea how much this means to us. Oh, but I think I do, Chloe. I think I know exactly how much it means to you. And I plan to use that to my full advantage. I help Ethan and Chloe prepare their house for sale over the course of the following few weeks. I send in my crew of photographers and stage designers to turn the dilapidated property into a sleek, contemporary focal point. I can't help but notice the tension between them, though, even while I work. Being irritated and short-tempered, Ethan lashes out at Chloe over the simplest things. In contrast, Chloe appears withdrawn and miserable, with dead dull eyes. One day, Chloe pulls me away while we're reviewing some papers. Zara, can I talk to you for a minute? In private? I walk her into a quiet room and nod. Her hands tremble as she inhales deeply. I don't know how much more of this I can take. Ethan, he's not the man I thought he was. I pretend to be surprised and raise an eyebrow. Oh. What do you mean? Tears come to Chloe's eyes. He's controlling, manipulative. He's been emotionally abusive for years, but I never wanted to admit it. I thought I could change him, but I was wrong. I suppressed the glimmer of pity I have for her. This woman destroyed my life by stealing my spouse. I cannot afford to be sympathetic to her. I'm sorry to hear that, Chloe, I remarked in a calm, non-committal tone. But what do you expect me to do about it? Her eyes are beseeching as she looks at me. I don't know. I just needed to tell someone. I feel so trapped. So alone. I nod, my thoughts rushing. It's this. This is my chance to finally defeat Ethan, the moment I've been waiting for. I understand. I put a hand on her shoulder and said. And I want to help you, Chloe. But you have to be willing to help yourself first. You have to be ready to leave him. To start over. Her face crumples as she nods. I know I do. But I'm scared, Zara. I'm so scared. I give her a shoulder squeeze while speaking in a forceful yet comforting tone. I understand how you're feeling, but know that you're not alone, Chloe. I'm here to support you, and together, we'll make sure Ethan receives the justice he deserves. I'm polite and professional, but I can't help but notice the building tension between Ethan and Chloe as we work closely together over the following 3 days, showing them possible properties that match their budget. Ethan is irritable and angry, sneering at each house I show them. Is this all you can do, Zara? I believed you were meant to be the town's top agent. Keeping my smile intact, I bite back a retort. I promise you, Ethan, that I'm showcasing the finest houses within your budget. However, I'm happy to keep searching if you have a specific idea in mind. During our showings, Chloe appears withdrawn and preoccupied. She seldom talks and keeps her eyes on the ground. I see her glancing at Ethan with a mix of fear and hatred, and I know that our chat from the other day is still a big part of her thoughts. Chloe abruptly interrupts us as we're driving back from yet another failed showing, saying, Zara, is it possible for us to speak in private? I turn to look at Ethan, who is frowning out the window. Chloe, of course. How about we get coffee? After dropping Ethan off at their hotel with the promise that we will meet later to discuss some paperwork, I take Chloe to a quiet cafe and order a cappuccino for the two of us. I've been thinking a lot about what you said the other day, about leaving Ethan, starting over, she says, taking a big breath while holding her mug tightly. I maintain a neutral expression as I nod. And what have you decided? Tears well up in Chloe's eyes as she says, I'm not sure whether I can do it. I've known him my entire life, and I'm afraid of what he might do if I try to leave. I take her hand across the table and say, I know it's scary, Chloe. But this is far less than what you deserve. Instead of someone who depresses and manipulates you, you deserve to be with someone who loves and respects you. She wipes her eyes with a tissue and nods, saying, I understand. You're correct, I know that. However, I'm not really sure where to begin. Squeezing her hand, I say in a firm but comforting manner, start by speaking with a lawyer. Find out what alternatives you have. Meanwhile, keep a record of everything. Note every instance of Ethan being domineering or abusive. If you choose to leave, it will help you make a stronger argument. Chloe nods and takes a trembling breath. All right, I can do that, all right. With a glimmer of optimism, I grin at her and say, and Chloe, keep in mind, you're not alone, I'm here to support you at every turn. Ethan is waiting excitedly in the hotel foyer as we return after finishing our coffee. Where have you been? Glaring at Chloe, he yells, I've been waiting for more than an hour. I move forward and say, I'm sorry, Ethan, in a composed and businesslike tone. I promise that everything is in control, but Chloe and I had some business to discuss. His eyes widen as he frowns at me, saying, it had better be. Zara, I'm too busy to play any more of your games. With a lazy, rapt smile, I say to him, "Oh, Ethan, you have no idea what kind of game I'm playing." I can feel his gaze piercing my back as I turn to leave, but I ignore it since I have work to do. I assist Chloe in gathering proof of Ethan's abuse over the course of the following several weeks, and she begins journaling, recording every harsh remark and every act of control. She also takes pictures of the bruises on her arms and the holes he has punched in the walls. I'm also constructing my own case against him in the meantime. When the time comes to finally take Ethan down, I'll be prepared to watch him fall and see the expression on his face when he realizes that he's finally met his match. In Zara, the woman he once destroyed, the woman who rose from the ashes, stronger and more powerful than ever before, the woman who will be his ultimate downfall. I reach out to some of his former clients, the ones who felt cheated and misused, and I gather evidence of his unethical practices and shady dealings. I didn't anticipate the day of reckoning coming so quickly. Chloe, who is distraught, answers the phone as I'm in my office reviewing some papers. "Zara, please, you have to help me." Ethan learned about the attorney. He is enraged. He's threatening to destroy me and injure me. In a second, I'm standing up and reaching for my purse and keys. "Listen, Chloe. Now leave that place. Find a secure location. I'll look after Ethan." On the other end of the line, I can hear her crying. All right, I'll go to my sister's apartment. But please, Zara, exercise caution." He's not thinking clearly. My heart pounding, I hang up the phone, knowing what I must do. My thoughts racing with potential outcomes. I know I need to be clever about this, have to play my cards exactly right, as I make my way to Ethan's office. He looks up from his desk, his face contorted with anger, and they enter his office without knocking, holding my head high. "What the hell are you doing here, Zara?" I give him a chilly, cunning smile and say, "Ethan, I believe you understand exactly why I'm here. I am aware of the things you have been doing to Chloe. I am aware of the manipulation and abuse." With his hands clenched at his sides, he gets to his feet and says, "Zara, you don't know anything. You're just a resentful, envious lady who finds it impossible to move on from the past." With a hard, brittle laugh, I say, "Oh, Ethan, you don't know what I'm capable of. I have been observing you in order to collect proof. I am aware of your dubious activities and immoral behavior. I have enough to demolish everything you've ever worked for and ruin you." I can see the terror in his eyes as his face goes pale. "You're bluffing. You've got nothing on me." "Oh, but I do, Ethan," I say, reaching into my purse and taking out a big folder. "You cheated and lied to your former clients, and I have their testimonies. I have financial documents that prove your fraud and embezzlement. I have pictures of the bruises you gave Chloe when you were angry." He rushes to retrieve the folder as I hurl it onto his desk. "Ethan, it's over. You're done. And I'll make sure you spend the rest of your life in prison if you ever approach Chloe again or touch her." His face twisted with dread and anger, he looks up at me and says, "Zara, you can't do this. You can't ruin me." With a low, ominous whisper, I bend up close and say, "Watch me." He takes my arm and digs his fingers into my skin as I turn to go. "Zara, you'll pay for this? I'll see to that." With my eyes burning with rage, I yank my arm away. "No, Ethan. You will be held accountable for what you have done to Chloe, me, and everyone else you have harmed in the process. I'm going to be the one to ensure that you make the payment." With my heart thumping in my chest, I leave his office, knowing that this is only the beginning and that a long and challenging road lies ahead, but I also know that I'm prepared for it. I'm ready to stand up for what's right, to regain the power that Ethan took from me all those years ago. I get into my car and drive to Chloe's sister's house, my mind racing with potential solutions. I know I must be there for her, to support her during this trying time, but I also know I must be strong, to take the lead, because this is my battle too. I am Zara, and I am a force to be reckoned with. Heaven help anyone who tries to stand in my way. This is my chance to put things right, to get the retribution I have been longing for. And I will not stop until Ethan is held accountable and made to pay for all the suffering he has caused. The consequences of my confrontation with Ethan are swift and severe. Within days, his abusive behavior and unethical practices are widely publicized in the city's newspapers and news websites. His law firm collapses, sending clients running in droves. His partners distance themselves in an attempt to preserve their own reputations. And Ethan himself is humiliated, his name becoming associated with dishonesty and corruption. Knowing that I contributed to his demise, I watch it all play out with a grim sense of satisfaction, but I also know that my work is far from done. Chloe files for divorce, and I assist her in finding a new home, a modest but comfortable apartment in a quiet neighborhood. She is terrified and overwhelmed, but I reassure her that she is not alone and that there are people who want to support her. She tells me about years of abuse and manipulation, the ongoing fear and self-doubt, and I tell her about my own divorce, how Ethan almost destroyed me but I found the strength to rebuild my life. We spend long hours talking, sharing our stories and our pain, and together we begin to heal, finding a new sense of purpose and hope. Chloe goes to treatment and begins classes to complete her degree. I immerse myself in my profession, committed to changing the lives of other women who have experienced similar hardships. After a few months, things start to return to normal, and Ethan fades into the background as a warning about what happens when ego and power run amok. However, one day, I get a call that completely alters everything. Ethan is pleading with me for assistance. "Zara, please," he pleads in a broken and frantic voice. I know I have no right to ask, but I don't know where else to turn. My freedom, my reputation, and my career are all on the line. I need your assistance. I'm tempted to end the call and let him pay for his crimes, but then I recall something my therapist said about the need for forgiveness and how harboring hate and resentment ultimately damages us. I inhale deeply and then make a choice that even surprises me. "All right, Ethan, I'll assist you. But not for me, nor for you. Because in order to move on with my life, I must let go of the past." We meet at a coffee shop, and as I listen to him open up to me about his anxieties, his regrets, and his desperate attempt to put things right, I feel a shift in myself. A sense of release and closure. Then, feeling lighter than I have in years, I get up to go, giving him tools and advice on how to get assistance and make amends. With tears in his eyes, he adds, "Thank you, Zara. I know I don't deserve your kindness, but I'm grateful nonetheless." With a little smile teasing my lips, I nod. "Ethan, look after yourself. Additionally, keep in mind that there is always time to start afresh." I feel at peace as I leave the coffee shop, knowing that although I will always remember the suffering and anguish of my past, I have managed to go on and create a new life founded on fortitude, resiliency, and optimism. I feel a rush of pride and thankfulness for how far I've come and for the person I've become when I think back to the woman I was all those years ago, the one who was lost and shattered and believed she would never find her way out of the darkness. I am Zara, a lady who has persevered through hardships and emerged stronger on the other side. I am confident that I possess the bravery and tenacity to confront any obstacles life presents and to keep going forward, one step at a time. 7 years after my husband caught me cheating with my boss and went to prison for assault, he's out. Now, I'm alone, and my kids hate me. I'm a selfish person, or so I tell myself practically every night when I hear the silence in my home. My children aren't here, my ex-husband hates me for good cause, my immediate family is fractured, and I've never stopped hating myself for what I did. My selfish conduct occurred in 2015. I had just reached 39, and I admit that I took my ex-husband for granted. My ex told me every day that I was beautiful, that he wanted to be intimate with me, that he cared for me, and that he treated me as an equal. He never regarded me as a queen or princess. I was his partner. We'd been married for 20 years by that point, high school sweethearts and each other's only, and it seemed right. My family adored him, my brother looked up to him, and my ex supported him through many difficult moments. My ex was the person people contacted when they were in difficulties, and he assisted them. He was a good guy. Over the years, I have given him 2 strong boys. At the time of this narrative, they were 18 and 16, and we had twin girls who were 13 years old. I had gained weight and felt self-conscious, but he still called me lovely. Our fights were rare and far between. We discussed everything, but when we disagreed, it was typically over sex or a lack thereof on my part, as well as the things I refused to do in bed. It wasn't that I didn't want to do things, it was just that I wasn't in the mood, which he understood. When I turned 39, my birthday celebration unveiled the new me. I had spent the entire year in the gym, doing yoga and Pilates. My efforts helped me lose 180 pounds and reach 135, which was an incredible transformation for me. I had always been a plump girl, so having a tight fit figure was a new sensation for me. My ex-husband also went to the gym with me, albeit not as frequently, but he dropped from 260 pounds to 225 and began to shape his physique. My ex-husband could not keep his hands off of me, but I was still not in the mood. He certainly made an effort. We attended dinners, danced and went for regular walks. He always helped around the house, and I could see in his eyes how much he adored and lusted after me. After 20 years together, he still gazed at me with passion. I believe any woman would desire that, but I wasn't in the mood. At the time, I assumed I was going through early menopause because we only had sex 2, maybe 3 times a month and I was a one and done, but he desired more. No matter how hard he tried, I just wasn't into it. He suggested couple counseling, but I refused. So my selfishness comes into play. A new manager began working in my office a few days after my birthday. He was significantly younger and more attractive, and for some reason, he was interested in me. Initially, I ignored him. Then it switched from ignoring to casual chatting. He flirted, so I showed him my ring. However, after 2 months of relentless flirtation, I reciprocated, which led to me telling him about my life and finding myself thinking about him more and more. This was an emotional affair, as I now realize, but I was high at the time. My ex-husband suspected something was wrong with me. We had a furious dispute over it, which I feel I began. He moved to kiss me and I subconsciously produced a horrified expression. It wasn't directed at my ex. I was thinking about another man as my husband leaned in, and I was dissatisfied with the whole situation. At least that is what I tell myself. A week later, I asked the new boss to meet me in a cafe so we could discuss. I was about to beg him to leave me alone and that I couldn't do this, but he kissed me first, and my thoughts went blank. That marked the beginning of our 6-month affair. During that period, I did things with this man that my ex-husband had long desired. I was more enthusiastic, willing, and usually in the mood. I think it was because it was something new. During this time, my ex and I continued to have sex, albeit less regularly. I started pushing him away, nitpicking his minor habits and even criticizing him. I'm ashamed of how I handled him at the time. I only understood what I was doing when my brother came to visit and informed me that my ex had confided in him. My ex was despondent and contemplating divorce, claiming that he no longer loved me and that he was beginning to lose interest in me. That brought me out of it. So I immediately called it off, quit my job, and promised myself that I would make my husband feel loved and cherished. I was going to change this. If possible, I would be a better wife. My affair partner, arrived at my residence with a package of office supplies from my desk, which I had ordered to be shipped. We spoke. He wanted to know what he had done wrong, and I told him I needed to work on my marriage. I told him to leave, but he wanted one final chance. I told him no, but he begged and pleaded, and like a fool, I gave in. We went into the guest room and started fighting. I'm not sure how long we were doing this, but when he was on top of me, I felt him violently snap back, and there was a huge crash. I sat up, and my ex looked at me. My AP was on the floor, and there was a big hole in the wall. I tried to talk to my ex, but his eyes were bloodshot. His lips trembled as tears streamed down his cheeks. I could tell he was in a lot of agony, and I felt disgusted. I witnessed my AP stand up and try to leave. My ex looked at him, and my AP told him that if he knew what was best for him, he'd back off. So my ex assaulted him. I yelled and cried for my ex to stop. Desperate, I jumped on his back, causing me to be slammed to the ground. Everything became blurry for a time. Sentences sounded muffled, but when I awoke, my ex had my AP by his side and was on the phone. All I could do was stare at my AP's injured face and the blood and teeth on the floor next to him. There was a loud bang on the door, and I saw my ex put the phone on speaker, carefully set it on the floor, drop to his knees, and place his hands on the back of his head. The door opened and the police entered and handcuffed him. Paramedics came shortly later. I quickly found that he had phoned 911 himself. At the hospital, everything went terribly wrong. My father didn't say anything to me, he just stared at me with shame. My brother was yelling at me, looking upset and questioning how I could have done that to my ex. My mother was comforting me, telling me everything will be fine, which prompted my father to yell at her. His family was infuriated. His sisters threatened me, and his parents seemed to wish to put me to an early grave. I approached my children, but they refused to speak with me. My sons wouldn't even look at me. My AP was severely damaged and required reconstructive surgery on his face. My ex had nearly crushed it. At the hospital, a woman entered my room and immediately attacked me. My brother grabbed her away from me and it turned out she was my AP's wife. I didn't realize he was married. He never wore a ring and never said anything. It made me feel even worse. Prior to the trial, my boys stayed with their grandparents on my husband's side, while my girls refused to speak with me. My ex did not want to see me either. I attempted to visit him at the county jail, but was forbidden. My brother made sure my ex went to the correctional facility where he worked so he could monitor him. When I requested my brother to deliver a message for me, he told me to go to hell. During the trial, I saw my ex for the first time in months. He gazed at me with rage, and it hurt more than I could have imagined. He had always looked at me with love, even while we were fighting. He always looked at me with love, but throughout the trial, it was hatred. I had to excuse myself for crying in the restroom. As the days passed, I was compelled to recount my affair in full for everyone to hear. When I informed them how long it had lasted, my ex looked devastated, and my father stood up and exited the courtroom. During my ex's testimony, I discovered that he had returned home to surprise me with lunch and a weekend trip for two to the Catskills. He had planned a romantic retreat, but as we walked in, he responded. He claimed that when the AP told him to step aside, he snapped and pummeled him, stopping only after he flung me off his back. He instantly called 911, and we heard the recording in court. Hearing the misery in his voice and sobbing as he did everything the operator told him to do was heartbreaking. The AP couldn't speak verbally and was extremely drugged, so they utilized photographs of him, which made me sick because I was to blame for everything. My ex broke his eye socket, cheekbones and jaw. They claimed there were bone fragments that were too small to piece together. My ex was charged with a third-degree felony and sentenced to 7 years in prison, causing my kids to yell and protest, as well as my girls and his family to let out a howl that still haunts me today. The first 3 months were terrible. My AP's soon-to-be ex-wife sued me for affection-based alienation. My ex has filed for divorce. My eldest son has moved out. My other kid remained in his room, and my twins were rebelling fiercely. My ex-sisters-in-law attacked me in the middle of Price Chopper. When I tried to apologize to his mother, she spat in my face. My father and brother refused to speak with me. Eventually, I needed to locate a new job. There was no money coming in, and I nearly depleted my funds, but I was essentially blacklisted in my sector. It was negative publicity for the accounting firm, so I started working in retail and became a seasonal H&R block adjuster during the tax season. I almost lost my house. My ex refused to let me visit him, and each letter I sent was returned. Crying in the shower became practically a daily habit. My parents almost split up because my mother was continually defending me. My brother refused to accept me, and my pals, whom I'd known since elementary school, were divided. I soon began to have ideas of terminating things, of packing my goods and going. The guilt was so heavy. I eventually saw a therapist, who admonished me for being too familiar with my ex. I no longer considered him a spouse. Instead, I saw him as a friend with perks, and I treated him accordingly. I did, and she was right. I became too comfortable with him. I regarded him as a comrade, but he saw me as his wife, the mother of his children, the woman he adored and wanted. I took him for granted. Almost a year passed, and my children remained silent. When I served dinner, they would take their meal and disappear to their rooms, not even looking at me. I had a few meltdowns, imploring them to say anything to me, but nothing happened. My brother was married and I was not invited, but my children were. I continued to try to visit my ex, hoping that he had put me on the visitor list, but I was always turned down. My letters were still getting returned. It left me terribly depressed, and I felt I deserved it. Then, unexpectedly, my brother showed up. I was both surprised and pleased to see him, as it was the first time he had visited my house since the trial. He just came to reprimand me, informing me that my ex was in the hospital after being stabbed. An inmate attempted to sexually abuse him in his cell, which resulted in my ex being stabbed in the stomach and the inmate's spine breaking. My brother yelled at me, "You did this?" before returning to his truck. I grieved for days thereafter because he was correct. I did this. I attempted to visit my ex in the infirmary, but was forbidden. For 4 more years, I attempted to communicate with him and continued to write letters, but they were returned. Fortunately, our children visited their father frequently, which is how I heard he had been placed in protective custody by my brother after the attack. My eldest son graduated from the same college as my ex and majored in the same field. He only called his siblings. He never wanted to talk to me. He never comes to our place for the holidays, only to his grandparents. My other son followed suit, attending the same institution and refusing to call me. My twins were difficult to deal with, but they went to see their father once a week, which helped them feel better. When they became too disobedient, their uncle would punish them, but my brother and I continued to communicate sparingly. I tried to visit his wife after they had their first child, but I was ordered to leave. My mother kept me updated on their life, but my father still refused to acknowledge me. Then, at the start of May this year, my children were joyful, and my sons returned home. I had no idea why and it didn't matter. They were home. For 4 months my children were present and I tried everything I could to express my regret, but I was mostly ignored. Still, they were talking to me, and it made me very glad to have a conversation with them and learn about their life. My eldest had been dating a woman for over a year, my second-born was on a college track team, and my girls started talking to me again. I hated myself even more for what I had done to them. It was wonderful to see them smiling, joking and eating supper together again. At the end of August, I was preparing for the twins' first day of senior year, which also coincided with their 18th birthday. I conveyed my enthusiasm for their birthday party and told them what I planned to accomplish. My girls immediately asked if we could reschedule. This confused me because I believed we were improving. When I inquired why, one of them explained, "Because Dad is throwing us a party, and I don't want you near him." That comment stunned me. I asked when their father was released and they claimed he was let out at the end of April for good behavior. I cried because he was gone, and it shattered me even more. They were more present because he was gone. They felt better and more cheery now that their father was back in their lives. It wasn't because we were beginning to recover, they had him back. When I questioned where he was staying, they told me he was with my brother. I tried calling. I needed to speak with him, but he refused. I attempted going over, holding all the letters that had been returned throughout the years, and I caught a glimpse of him through the crack in the door. I called his name, but my brother told me to leave. I handed him the letters and departed. When I reached the driveway, I heard his voice. When I turned around, he was walking toward me. I immediately started crying and rushed to hug him, but he returned my letters. "You forgot this," he coldly told me. I cried as he walked away. I begged and pleaded for him to talk to me, but he simply walked back into the home. My children stood outside the entrance, staring at me, with no love in their eyes. At that point, I knew my children were simply tolerating me. However, I still want to improve it. I'd like to tell them how selfish I was. I want to tell him how much I miss him and how sorry I am for destroying what we had. So I'm still trying to go through my daily existence. My mother informed me that my AP's ex-wife began seeing my ex 2 years ago and has been returning to see him. I don't really care, all I want is for him to forgive me. I want him to speak to me. I want him to be with me. I want him to look at me like he used to. I want my kids to be with us. I really want my family back, but I know I do not deserve it. Even if we miraculously reunite, it will never be the same. I was selfish and I wish I could take it back. My son's response. This is a response to my mother's post entitled "My Selfishness Ruined My Family." I'm a frequent Reddit user, therefore I'm using a throwaway since I don't want anyone in my social circle to know this is me. I try to keep my past a secret. My college buddies are unaware that my father is in prison, and I don't want to inform them. So, as I strolled around campus, I overheard others talking about and sharing this post, which brought back a lot of emotions I'd been working to overcome. I looked it up and found enough evidence to conclude it was about my family, which enraged me. I reached out to my mother and, as usual, tears flowed. I yelled at her. When I went to visit my father and told him what I did, he yelled at me as well, but he is a wonderful man. He just yelled at me for cussing. He always tells me that even if I don't love my mother, I should respect her. But it is difficult to appreciate someone like her. My father has always battled. He would instill in us the importance of being grateful for growing up in a community where we would not be attacked for obtaining excellent marks or reading books. He informed us that where he grew up, children were bullied for seeking white things, such as attending college. He described how difficult it was for him in the South Bronx. My aunts informed us that when he was 13, he joined a gang so that he could be left alone at school. When he was 15, his father died of cancer, and my father had to be a surrogate parent to his 2 sisters due to a lack of life insurance. He worked and did anything he could to help pay the rent and put food on the table, all while still attending school. My father felt it was lucky that his mother remarried a wonderful man and relocated to upstate New York for a better lifestyle. My uncle informed me that when they first met my father, they thought he was peculiar. It was the 1990s, and when my father strolled into school wearing baggy trousers and a Puerto Rican flag shirt, they decided to tease him. My uncle said they weren't expecting my father to fight back, but he did. He kicked their asses. Instead of walking away, my father helped him up and offered if he wanted to skip school, share a 40 and talk things over. My uncle remarked that when my father did that, he knew they'd be buddies, and they soon started hanging out. That's when my father introduced him to my mother, and they hit it off. They attended the same college and got married by the end of their first year. Growing up, my parents were always in a romantic relationship. They were always holding hands and kissing, which was quite humiliating. Even at the beginning of my senior year, when everything went wrong, my father treated my mother as if she were a teenager. He loved and appreciated her. I can honestly tell that he never put her on a pedestal. He would lecture me that a woman will not respect a man who puts her on a pedestal. When I questioned why, he responded, "Because she'll always be looking down on you." My father informed me that both his father and stepfather shared the same philosophy. Treat your wife as an equal. She is your greatest friend and confidant, just as you are hers. My father had his idiosyncrasies. He was a large guy who was always joking. 5'11", 260 pounds. And despite his weight, he was highly active. I used to enjoy it when he sang to my mother. We all did. He'd serenade her, buy her flowers, and sign the card, "Because it's Thursday and I was thinking about you." He occasionally wrote her love letters and defended her honor when she was treated rudely or disrespectfully. He frequently complimented her on her beauty. My father demonstrated to the daughters the type of man they should have in their lives. My father was always there for my uncle, even when everyone else believed he was a lost cause. My father never gave up on him, and as my grandfather once stated, he knocked the stupid out of him and left behind the man he was supposed to be. That sentence has always made me laugh. My father showed me how a guy, a friend, and a husband should act. Prior to her affair, my mother had always adored my father. He was constantly supportive and encouraging. He was her one-man pep rally when she was feeling low, and she was his. They had the marriage that we all wanted. Then my mother messed it up. I recall those months when she spoke to my father as if he were beneath her. He pushed back but controlled himself. Even though my father was a college graduate and a successful financial consultant, he could go from zero to ghetto in 5 seconds. Grandma described him as being similar to his father. Nice, respectable, and helpful, but willing to cut your neck out with his bare hands. My father tried everything. Buying her flowers, taking her out to dinner and dancing, but she was in her own little world and mistreated him. We all witnessed it. It had a significant impact on my brother and twin sisters, but my father smiled and assured us that everything will work out. He would add that Mom was probably stressed out at work and bringing it home. I believed it, especially after she quit her job. I honestly believed it was her employment that was the issue. Then my father was arrested. Mom, do you know how embarrassed we felt when the entire school was discussing what happened? My father got detained because my mother couldn't close her legs. I couldn't bear looking at you, so I went to stay at Grandma's place. The sight of you repulsed me. When I visited Dad, he couldn't bear to look at me. He was embarrassed. He told me he had failed as a husband and a guy. I told him he didn't, but he said he did since a man would have considered the repercussions of his actions before doing anything so idiotic. He said he failed as a husband because his wife had cheated on him with another man. I implored him to please look at me, but he refused. Then you had the nerve to seek our forgiveness, and for the first time in my life, I wanted to physically harm you. We were all hurting, and you asked for forgiveness. Sitting in that trial and listening to that 911 call was the worst 25 minutes of my life. 25 minutes of listening to my father, who would have murdered and died for you, crying and imploring the operator for assistance, telling the woman that he thought he had killed someone, and again stating, "The love of my life cheated on me." It harmed us more than anything. I understand you attempted to act as a character witness for Dad. We all told you not to do it, but you did anyway. Why? Did you want to show us that you still loved him? Tell the court that he is a good man. Because, in my opinion, the cross-examination in which you informed everyone how long you had been with that son of a bitch was the reason we lost him and sent him to jail. I believe if we had an actual lawyer rather than an appointed one, he would have walked. As a result, I experienced anger issues. My brother became a secret alcoholic. One of the twins was suicidal, and you were unaware. All you wanted was to attempt to work things out with Dad, leaving me to support my siblings. I loathed you. In certain ways, I still do. When I got to college, I had no desire to associate with you. Like my father, I had to be a surrogate parent to my siblings. I was working full-time, attending college, and giving you money to help pay the bills. I'm not sure why you made it appear like you were doing it alone. Mom, I know it was difficult, I know you were depressed, but you got aid with your finances and Grandma defended you. But Mom only did it because everyone was against you, or so the twins believe. When Dad was stabbed, I nearly had a mental breakdown. I'd just seen him that day. I was making fun of how muscular he had become, and we had a nice chuckle about what Dad dubbed the prison body plan. He made it sound like a funny commercial. I was almost back to school when I received the phone call. I almost crashed the car because my brain shut down. It was difficult for everybody. I didn't tell anyone, but I sat outside the scumbag's flat. I wanted to beat him up so severely, but when I saw him walking with that cane, I remembered Dad's words and drove away. As the years passed, Grandma died, followed by Grandpa a few days later from broken heart syndrome, and Dad was unable to attend the burial. Did you know that both of his sisters married in the waiting room so he could give them away? The harm you've caused to all of us is immense. It didn't help that you continued asking us for forgiveness and another chance. You never gave us room to understand or heal. You just kept asking, and all I saw was your desire to make yourself feel better. You did not give a damn. You did not try. You merely gave us room and pretended that we were expected to act normally again. Yes, you tried later, but not when it was most crucial. When Dad came out, he told us to start talking to you. He stated you were a good mother to us and that we should treat you with respect, so we did. It made you happy for a while. I remembered what it was like to not despise you. Dad struggled to find work at first, but one of his old clients eventually hired him. I did not anticipate the twins to spring that bomb on you. Dad didn't want you to know he was gone, so when you appeared, it disturbed him. He threw up after speaking with you. He stated the sight of you made him nauseous. Regarding your statement in your post regarding your ex-wife coming to see Dad, she has been seeing him weekly for over 3 years, and they have spent time together since he was released. So please, don't build a castle in the sky about the two of you getting back together. Call me if you want to discuss this. Call me if you want to fix things with your children. What you did last week, posting what is perhaps the worst time of our lives, is sheer selfishness, as your title implies. I told Dad about it, but he didn't care. He claimed you are only the mother of his children. Am I the asshole for telling my cousin that she only got pregnant to trap a man, and it didn't go over well? Hey everyone, here's my tale from 7 years ago. It occurred around the time I first relocated to Vegas. I had a cousin with 7 children, and since I had just moved, I hadn't seen them since the youngest was in diapers. Now, this relative has a sister who has only 1 child. She receives food stamps and child support for just 1 child, despite the fact that she is unemployed. She's the type of person who swaps her food stamps for cash and spends it on frivolous purchases like trips to California and green herb to smoke. She only cares about people she can use. In contrast, my cousin with 7 children works her buttocks off. She's a little embarrassed that she receives government assistance because she feels responsible for raising all 7 of her children, but no matter how hard she works, she just earns enough to cover the bills. Her food stamps only cover the cost of 1 month's worth of groceries. If you haven't noticed, growing children consume a lot of food. Mind you, I was 20 years old about to turn 21, and I always had some money left over after each payday. My payments were always paid on time, and I occasionally helped my mother. We went to see the kids one day, and the third youngest told me that Christmas was approaching and that he was delighted because they get to eat excellent food on Christmas. These kids live on ramen and ravioli. Hearing him say this broke my heart. Her children are generally well behaved, and they deserve a lovely Christmas. I began asking them what they wanted, from oldest to youngest. Dax wanted headphones and a new sweatshirt. Jen requested a sweater and nail polish. Darren requested a football and a cake. Junior wanted a soccer ball and cake. Zed wanted Transformers and Power Rangers. Nana wanted a My Little Pony, and Jay wanted Paw Patrol. Clearly, I have changed their names here. So, because the kids don't understand Spanish yet, I informed my cousin that I'd be taking Christmas off and that I wanted to take care of it for the kids. She seemed to want to cry. She thanked me and said she would try to repay me. I told her no, but she claimed she'd take an extra shift since she still wanted to get them something. I got paid and established a $40 limit for each child. I gave each kid 2 large presents from Walmart and used the rest of the money to get them all modest extras from the dollar store. Her children appreciate all you give them. The 2 who wanted cake got it. I even tied a bow around it and concealed it among the milk and eggs in the refrigerator. Now, I assume my cousin informed her sister since I received a call from her sister. Here's how the conversation went. She called and said, "Hey, Chris told me you're doing Christmas for her kids." I replied, "Yes, they are spending Christmas Eve at my house. Mom is cooking dinner, and we'll open presents the next morning." "Surely you have room for one more?" she asked. "Are you talking about your kid?" "Of course I am." "Okay, no issue. Drop him off on Christmas Eve night to eat and watch movies, and then pick him up the following morning." "No problem." Mind you, after buying the kids gifts and my parents, I was a little broke. The entitled cousin called me the day before Christmas Eve, so I scrimped and bought her child some dollar store toys. On Christmas Eve my mother gathered up the 7 children and brought them to the house. They were astounded at the gifts under the tree and the stockings with their names on it. The elder ones were joking about, wondering who got what. I waited for perhaps an hour or 2, but my cousin never arrived with her child. So we fed the children and began watching movies. After around 3 movies, all of the youngsters dropped out from food comas. We awoke the next morning to find that my entitled cousin had not yet responded. The children began opening their presents. Junior and Darren enjoyed some Christmas cake, which they shared with their siblings. Everything was in full flow when there was a knock on the door. I opened it, and I wasn't particularly pleased. "Why the freak are you knocking on my door? Oh, it's you two. Why didn't you bring your child last night?" I asked. My cousin snapped, "Watch your mouth. I became busy and couldn't make it." At this moment I rolled my eyes because I could smell a bull. "You've said worse things in front of your kid. You want to come inside?" "Sorry, we do not have time." "Can we just get his presents and meal and leave?" "His meal?" "Yeah, your mom cooked." "Yes, she cooked last night. You were busy and the kids ate everything. You didn't save my kid a plate." "Well, you never brought him, so no." "Whatever, just give us his present." Her child seemed to want to stay and play. I felt sorry for him. I walked inside and swam through the wrapping paper to find his gifts. They were little, so I placed them in a gift bag. He opened them on my porch, and his eyes brightened. "Woo, a ninja, a wrestler, ooh, silly putty. I received a puzzle, I love it. Thank you Momo. This is what my nephews call me." I felt a little emotional and hugged him back, saying, "Merry Christmas." Meanwhile, my cousin stood there and asked, "That's it?" I gave her a glance, trying to remain calm, but my anger was mounting. "What do you mean?" I inquired. "How much did you spend on them?" she insisted. "That's really none of your business," I said. She scoffed, "You are selfish. You got him these cheap toys in order to buy all of that junk for Chris and her children. Allow my child to have one of their toys so that it is fair." And that was all. I couldn't keep it in anymore. "Are you insane?" I snapped, shutting the door and concealing her children's ears. "It is Christmas. Be grateful I purchased anything at all. You only call us when you need something. You deprive your son of a wonderful time since all you care about is yourself. This is not fair to him. You waste your money on frivolous things when you have a full child to care for. You only have one child, and because you milk your baby daddy, that poor guy pays a lot of money for his son, while you spend it on your nails and marijuana. How about you act your age and take responsibility for once?" She appeared shocked. "Who do you think you are?" she exclaimed. "I'm not a lady who intentionally became pregnant in order to trap a man. A mother who does not get aid but pays taxes so that lazy people like you can feed their children. The woman who bought your child Christmas presents because I was not selfish like his mother." She appeared to want to hit me, and she probably would have if my mother hadn't come outside. My cousin felt intimidated by my mother, so she grabbed her child and went. Later, she moved to Chicago to leech off her mother. I hope her child is okay and doesn't take up on her bad habits. Late update. I spoke with my cousin who has 7 children, and she contacted their mother in Chicago. The child has grown taller, wow, genetics, and his grandmother has legal custody of him. His mother got in trouble with the authorities, as one would expect, but it wasn't because of drugs. She is serving time and has lost custody. His father still lives in Las Vegas, but he cannot afford to care for him because he is struggling to care for himself. My cousin is saving his allowance for a trip to see us, so I handed him $250 to help. Was I a jerk for calling out my cousin like that? Nope. At the very least, I ensured that the child did not hear me or took steps to minimize it. I honestly don't understand how people like her rationalize their actions. Whether she took the child out of laziness or with the intention of receiving free presents, she is still a bad parent, and it appears that social services agreed with me. However, inconveniencing a large number of other people in order to receive free food and toys that you had no intention of giving to your child is both lazy and selfish. At the very least, her child appears to be capable of outperforming his mother. Hopefully, without her influence, he will mature into a well-adjusted and moral individual who learns from her mistakes. If his father cannot afford to see him, it appears that he has a difficult situation. This reminded me of how grateful I was as a child for the cheapest bargain bin toys. Until my early teens, I was content with a modest toy from the dollar shop. It demonstrates how difficult things must be for my other cousins' children when they request sweaters, indicating a need for warm clothing rather than taking it for granted. Entitled Syl demanded I gift her a baby for her 30th birthday. So I exposed her ridiculousness and immaturity to everyone on social media. I'm not sure if anyone can relate to my dilemma or has even heard of it. It feels strange to even write this. It's about my Mill and Syl, who are pampered brats. Syl is 29 and a single woman. Well, that's not the issue. The issue is that she is an entitled woman who will not accept no as an answer. I am 37 years old and have been married to my 40-year-old husband for 12 years. We have 2 children, a 9-year-old boy and a 5-year-old girl. Despite our blissful marriage, touch wood, my pain in the neck is my overly theatrical Mill and my overly spoiled Syl. Before I tell you more about my position, Let me paint a picture of my mother-in-law and sister-in-law. They are social butterflies, similar to upper-class rich ladies in soap operas who spend their days at salons and massage parlors, and their evenings at bars chatting about other useless women. They exist in their own fantasy universe. They do not work. All they do is shop and chat. My FIL is busy generating money, while these women are busy spending it. FIL is essentially a non-existent part of the family, or rather a cash cow. There's a rumor that FIL has a mistress, and MIL is aware of it, so they have an unspoken agreement. He fulfills all of their demands without question, in exchange for having a mistress. I am not sure how true it is, but given Phil's status in the family, it appears likely. Otherwise, no sensible man would be silent about Mill and Sil's foolishness. Now, back to my sad existence. Last week, Mill called and invited me out to lunch, on a Wednesday afternoon. I wanted to say no, but she hadn't requested to meet with me in a long time. So I suggested an alternate schedule. I suggested that we meet for dinner in the evening, but they are busy women at night, spending time with friends at the gaming parlor. So we decided to meet on Saturday afternoon. I arrived in my usual attire, whereas she wore a completely shimmering black dress. What a great pick for an afternoon lunch. She critiqued my fashion sense the moment she saw me. After the light talk, she inquired about what we intended to give my Sil for her 30th birthday. I was perplexed because her 29th birthday was just a few months ago. I mentioned her next birthday is around 10 months away. She laughed and continued. That's why we need to plan ahead of time. Remember what happened last time? She was dissatisfied with the gifts you gave her, and her birthday was spoiled. I swallowed hard and said, yeah, of course. We spoiled her birthday because we gave her a normal $250 dress and not a premium Zara one with a matching sapphire necklace. She went on to elaborate. To avoid upsetting her this time, I have thought of the perfect gift which you guys should give her. So what was that? A baby. That's right, she wanted me to make a baby and give it to her entitled brat of a daughter. I was appalled. How could anyone believe that someone would ask for a baby as a gift? I could not understand what she was saying. I had to ask her several times if I had heard it correctly. She responded, yes, I want you to have a baby and give it to Stacy, SIL, as her 30th birthday present. I flipped out and said, why do you think I would do that? She cried. To compensate for your inadequate present this time. You wrecked her 29th birthday, and now you owe her this. I stood up and stated, I don't owe anyone anything. I'm not a broodmare who would breed a child and give it to her. I stormed out of the restaurant. On the way home, I stopped to pick up my son from his friend's house. When I got home, my husband questioned what had happened between me and MIL. I asked him what he'd been told. My husband is aware of MIL and SIL's tantrums, so he does not take them seriously. He explained, MIL called and said she suggested a present for Stacy's birthday, which you refused, and now she's mad at you. I responded, yes, she wanted your child to be given as a present to your sister. Do you want that? For a brief while, he assumed I was joking and making everything up. He was laughing and rolling on the floor as I told him the full story. Then alarmed, he asked, what is she even smoking? I made it obvious to him that I would not accept her demands. My husband reassured me, we are not having any more children, and we are definitely not giving one to Stacy. The following day was Sunday. We were both at home, relaxing on the couch and enjoying our day off, when Mill arrived at our house. I excused myself and went to my room, explaining that I was exhausted and needed to rest. Mill stopped me and said she came here to apologize for the previous day and begged me to hear her out. I was relieved that she had finally come to her senses. She apologized for not providing enough context in her request. She went on to explain, you know, Stacy is turning 30 next year and has been unmarried for a long time. It is driving her insane. She requires a distraction in life, and having a baby would be an excellent way to keep her happy. First and foremost, a newborn is a fully fledged human being, not cotton candy, brought in to keep children happy. If the spoilt brat requires distractions or a purpose in life, why doesn't she find a job? But no, the princess does not work. She doesn't move a finger about the house. By the way, she still lives with my in-laws because she has no income. She avoids home duties because her nails would get chipped. If you meet her, you'll notice that her brain hasn't developed since her 14th birthday. Her room's paint is still pink, and she has a large collection of pink outfits. She knows nothing about the world around her. She will be unfamiliar with the capital city or the country's president. All she knows is that a large sum of money suddenly arrives on her card, which she recklessly spends. I responded, if Stacy is so keen on having a baby, why doesn't she adopt one? Mael laughed and said, Don't be lazy. It's been a while since you were pregnant, so get the equipment back to work. Adopted newborns pose a significant risk. Who knows what diseases run in their family? It's safe with you folks. Can't you do this for your SIL? I looked at my spouse as if to plead, would you please say something? He chuckled and called Mill's suggestion stupid. He stated that I had a lot of motherly responsibilities as well as a career to manage, and that I couldn't have another baby in the thick of it all. He also commented on how strange it would be if her brother was the father of her child. My mother-in-law simply replied, why not? Maria's sister-in-law was a surrogate for her daughter, so what's the big deal if your wife does the same for Stacy? I was like, wait a minute, that was surrogacy. Maria's sister-in-law carried Maria's daughter's child because she was unable to conceive owing to medical reasons. Here, things are not the same. If Stacy had a medical concern, we might have offered to help her carry the baby. The situation here is different. You're asking us to make a baby as if we were a machine. My partner had advised, Stacy should find a guy, settle down with him, and have her own family rather than complicating the situation here. Mill began sobbing and lamented, my little girl has tried so many times to find a man, but you know how awful men are these days. She pointed at me and said, you're a lucky woman to have my son, but sweetheart, not everyone is as fortunate as you. Stacy can't be with just any regular man. You know she has great expectations. The man should treat her like we do. I responded, yeah, of course, the last man Stacy dumped was because he didn't buy her an overly expensive Gucci bag. Mill attempted to justify her pampered princess, but I jumped up and stated, I'm nauseated from this discussion and need to relax. Once more, we will not have a child to give CL as a birthday present. After a time, my spouse entered the bedroom. He cuddled me and attempted to lighten my melancholy. I asked him what he had told his mother. He told me that he had made it plain that we would not have any more children and that they should quit harassing us. He claimed Mil stormed out of the house in rage. Can you imagine how ridiculous this situation is? I want to bang my head against a wall, or bang theirs to make them see sense. Update 1. Hello everyone, and thank you for connecting with my post. Some of the comments were just amusing. You're correct in stating that Stacy is psychologically something. I feel the same way. Both Stacy and Mil need to have their heads checked. Perhaps they were buried under pounds of makeup, lol. If there had been any other regular person, they would have backed off after the previous talk. But now we're dealing with two maniacs. Until recently, it was just Mil, but Stacy has also gotten involved. I tell you, she is 100 times more difficult to talk to since she does not grasp logic. As I said in my previous report, Miel wrecked my Sunday with her baby-making pitch. A week later, on the following Sunday, bam! She appears again with her adorable doll. They seem to have promised to destroy my day off. Stacy entered wearing a skirt and a comfortable blouse. This was the first time I had seen her without her very tiny clothes, and her hair and nails were flawless. Mill pointed and asked, do you see? Stacy has already begun dressing like a mama. So this was the cause for her new fashion sense. Do they truly believe that changing your clothes will make you a mommy? Change your clothes and you're ready to be a mother. Stacy smirked at me and replied, I'm in. Whatever I do. Then she went to hug her older brother, as if she hadn't seen him in a long time. Remember, I said she acts like a 14-year-old sweetie pie. She cried, as if we were all standing far apart. When is the good news coming? My husband appeared foolish and asked, what's the good news? She smirked and added, I know you want to surprise me with your kid for my 30th birthday, but mom is a spoiler. I now know what your plan is. I'm overjoyed to be the mother of a gorgeous little girl. I have already started buying for her. My husband interrupted her mid-sentence, and I'm glad he did because I was going to slap her skull. He said, that is not true, we're not having a baby, much less giving one as a present. For a long time, she assumed he was merely attempting to mask the surprise. How delusional can you be? When she discovered she wasn't getting a kid as a gift, she screamed at me, why not? You have always been harsh to me, this is your time to set things right. Come on, get a nice tiny baby doll for me. I answered, Stacy, we don't run a baby supply company where you can purchase a gorgeous baby girl and receive one. Do you even know how babies are made? She relaxed and confessed, you know, I've always wanted a baby girl. I have so much love in me that I want to shower it on my baby. You're all depriving me of that. That baby will be really lucky to have me as her mother. I will raise her to be a confident and accomplished woman. I am confident that you will not be disappointed. You see, that is why I said you couldn't reason with her. This is mindless. First and foremost, do you believe she is in the appropriate mind to have a baby? She doesn't even realize that I have no control over my baby's gender. You don't get to choose as you would with a lipstick palette. Second, this witch has never carried a baby in her arms. When my children were babies, she used to chase them away afraid they might spit and stain her hair and clothes. Even now she won't let my daughter near her because she's terrified she'll damage her nails or hair. Can anyone envision this mother changing a diaper or swaddling a baby in the middle of the night? Furthermore, I cannot go through a torturous 9 months of pregnancy, then experience the agonizing pain of birth, only to hand over my child to this spoiled princess and watch her transform the baby into a miniature version of herself. Stacy was still rambling on about how she'd be an excellent mother, but I had lost myself in the sentiments I'd expressed above. Suddenly, I stood up and said, "Look, Stacy. I know you're going to hate me for this. You already hate me. So it doesn't matter. I am not going to have a baby for you. Do you understand it, or should I write it down for you? Because it appears that you and your mother have lost both your hearing and your mind." My husband motioned for me to calm down, but I had lost my mind with their madness. I told them I didn't want to talk about it any further, and if they kept bothering me, I'd block them from my residence. I went into my room and closed the door. I'm not sure if I overstepped my boundaries, but look at them. I cannot put into words how toxic they are. My husband tried to indicate that I was being too outspoken, but I was so upset with everyone that he didn't dare say anything else. He just informed me that his mother and sister had called him a simp and then departed. I don't care what people say, he has to quit being a nice guy to everyone. I was expecting another showdown this Sunday, but it's been quiet so far, and I hope it continues. I just want this inconvenience to cease. Update 2. Oh no, how could I have thought things would end so peacefully? Following the explosion, the next 2 weeks were quiet and tranquil. I felt so at ease without Mil showing up at our door. But God, it wasn't silent at all. There was a flurry of activity going on online that I was completely unaware of. Stacy had been defaming me on social media, alleging that I was taking away her chance to become a mother. She describes herself as a beauty guru and posts makeup tutorials. She has a respectable following on her account. I'm not extremely active on social media because I have a life outside of the screen, with 2 children and a real job. Anyway, Stacy said that her brother was game to have a baby for her, but I denied it. She stated that she has always wanted to be a mother, but because she is unmarried, she has had no luck with adoption. Such a lie. They never even attempted to adopt, and if they had, I'm sure she would have failed the adoption interview. Stacy said a lot of things to put me in a negative light. She said I was denying her a kid because she was unmarried and I held conservative, old-fashioned attitudes. I wanted to say that I was denying her the kid because she was stupid. I had no idea about her hatred campaign until my husband's aunt called and asked why I was doing this to Stacy. That was when I read everything. It was amusing how her foolish friends and relatives made me out to be the villain. Even if what she said is accurate, I have the right to say no. It is my body, and I may refuse. My husband encouraged me to ignore it, that it will pass like a season. I originally ignored it, but how can you not read public comments made against you? We are not that thick-skinned. I understood Stacy saw my quiet as weakness and was trash-talking me even more. My buddies and I devised a strategy to make Stacy pay for her actions. I called her and said, "I'm very concerned about the web campaign you're waging against me. The negativity is destroying my reputation. So I'm considering having a child for you." Yeah, I said it to please her ego. My reputation is ruined. I don't care what she or her foolish followers think of me, but she deserved to be put in her proper place. She's been a pain in my side for a long time, and it's finally time to deal with her. I responded, "Stacy, why don't you come over, and we can discuss a few things before we proceed." She was ecstatic, believing she had defeated me. When she came to my place, I replied, "Since I've agreed to your demands, why don't we go live and tell everyone you're having a baby soon? It would help to clear up any poor reviews, and you'd get a nice viewing time." She agreed right away because she enjoys social networking. We went live and I said, "I have agreed to have a baby for Stacy, so let's take some questions for the future mom." Stacy was so pleased with her victory that she had no idea what she was heading into. I responded, "So Stacy, what plans do you have for the baby?" She giggled and exclaimed, "Oh, I'm so delighted to be a mother to a baby girl. I had already started buying for her. I'm going to make her look like a celebrity from the moment she's born. I will never leave her without makeup. She will always have to appear perfect and acceptable." I didn't explicitly state that no one could guarantee she'd have a baby girl, but I let the audience educate her on the subject. Her response had already outraged many people and the video was filled with harsh comments and trolls. Stacy was so focused on expressing herself that she missed everything else. I replied, "That's lovely, Stacy, but what about when the baby is fussy and crying? How are you going to handle that?" She responded, "The girls in our family do not cry, do they? I mean, I have never seen your daughter weep. She's always well dressed and calm." Without making her feel silly, I said, "That's because you've only seen her for a short time. Every baby cries. Every tidy, well-dressed infant is the result of many hours of hard effort by the mother." Her answer was, "Then you can take care of the crying. And when she's calm, I'll dress her up in cute frilly dresses and matching necklaces and tiaras, and I'll put makeup on her." I couldn't stop giggling and told Stacy, "Babies cry all day and night. Are you suggesting you'll bring her to me every time she cries and then take her back after she's finished?" She exclaimed, "Yes, that's correct." "Why not?" I could no longer pretend and let out an evil laugh. She responded, "Are you trying to scare me off? How difficult could it be? You did it and I can do it too. I am so much better than you. I have more followers and a better fashion sense than you." She abruptly ended the live video while ranting. She was angry at me for grilling her on live camera, but she had no idea how much damage it had done to her. She stated, "We're game for the baby." As she walked away, I smiled calmly. My friend taped the entire live session. I wrote a lengthy essay detailing how Stacy and her mother had been pressuring me to have a child and give it to her as a birthday present. I methodically underlined all of the red flags that indicated why Stacy should not be trusted with a child. Her responses during the live stream were enough to let folks realize what an airheaded woman she is. I stated all of the additional things regarding Stacy that were not included in her responses. I tagged her in the post and shared it after midnight, thinking the princess would be sleeping. She'd wake up the next day, and by the time she untagged herself, thousands of people would have seen the message. As expected, my post went viral, owing to Stacy's followers. Tagging her in the post allowed her fans to troll her extensively, with comments such as, "How could someone with such a low IQ even exist on this planet?" A single comment said, "Forget about being a mother, this woman shouldn't be left alone on the streets." Following this internet argument, my mother-in-law called me. Before she could say anything, I told her, "Before you say anything, please know that you are being recorded and I will not hesitate to post it publicly." My God, she hung up and did not call back. I didn't